Okay. So Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So today's topic, we're on the fourth rivulet, is about zakat. So it's actually really really elegant the way that Sheikh Kashifi is moving forward, in this path. First, he started talking about najasat, impurities, right? So external impurities, but also impurities of the soul, and then water, the purifying effect that water has on it, both again external, material water, physical water, but also water of the soul, which he mentioned was the awliya, the friends of God. The true friends of God, or the lovers of God, are the ones that have this effect, the spiritual water. Then we talked about salat, prayer, right, and the meaning behind it, the inner meaning. Then afterwards, last week we talked about fasting. And now we're talking about zakat. So before I get into the poem, I wanted to just read the few lines here that the little introduction he gives before he jumps into the Mathnawi. He says, Rashhe Charum, which means the fourth rivulet, Dar Bayane Zakat, is in explanation of zakat. Va an dar shar bar chand cheez muayyan lazim mi shavad ba wujud sharayatish, which means that for zakat in the Sharia, it becomes obligatory or required or wajib upon several things depending on the person's condition, right? And this is the zakat that we know about in Sharia, right? Depending on your wealth, there's certain things which zakat applies to it. Vanazd muhaqqiqan, and the researchers or the scholars also say bar har chizi zakati wajib ast. The scholars say that upon everything, not just money and wealth, but everything has a zakat. Kama qila kullu shay'in lahu zakat, right? And I guess so. This is probably a hadith of some sort, where it says there is a zakat for everything. Tuaddi was zakat al-jamal rahmatul mathala. And they say, so that these are the different types of zakat. There's zakat al-zahir, so it's the apparent zakat. Okay, the apparent zakat, right, the one that we know about, infaq malast berizay khudavand. So the apparent zakat is giving away wealth for the pleasure of God. Va zakat ma'na, and the inner zakat, right, or the we talk about the word, and the ma'ni is one of the themes of this book, right? Everything has an external aspect to it, but then there's an inner meaning as well. So zakat zahir is like the word, as we've talked about, but ma'ani, zakat ma'ni, is the inner meaning of zakat. So zakat ma'ni infaq dil va ruh hast baraye Khuday Ta'ala. So the inner zakat is to give your heart and your spirit totally in submission of God, va talab qurb Mulla, and seeking nearness to the Lord, to the Master. Kama ishara al-Mawlavi Quddisa sirruh, as Mawlana Rumi has said. So now this is where the actual lines from the Mathnawi.
Yeah, you made a beautiful point. I think we should ponder over this a little bit when you mentioned zakat zahir and zakat mani. Zahir is the letters alphabet.
Yes.
Leb.
Yes.
Okay. In other words, they're the external component. Letters have a meaning that may not look like the letters at all. So the letters look different than their meanings. Same way, we look different than our spiritual and heart. So it's beautiful when he mentions Mani and
Yes.
Zahir.
Yes.
Beautiful, yeah. Now this is
Yeah.
the first time it became clear to me. Otherwise it was Zahir and Batin. But when he uses the word Mani, now that really explains what it actually translates to.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
so you capture the spirit of it. So
Yeah.
you have to give zakah of your worldly possessions and of your heart and soul also. Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. SubhanAllah. Yeah. Thank you for
No, no,
elaborating on that.
you alluded to it with money, and that really opened it up further.
Yes. Yeah, alhamdulillah.
Mm.
Okay, so this is we'll read the from the poetry now. جوشش و افزونی زر در زکات، اسمت از فحشا و منکر در صلات. So what this is saying is جوشش و افزونی زر در زکات. So it means in zakat, جوشش means the overflow and increase. Afzuni means increase. So the overflow and increase of
Our
one's
power.
right.
Yeah. By the way, these 14 lines really do not. They have very little new to add. We know most of this, so we don't have to really spend too much time on the detail of this letters. But actually, you can go ahead and expand on it after you finish this, because this is basically something that we all must know or do know.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. جوشش و افزونی زر در زکات، اسمت از فحشا و منکر در صلات.
Right.
آن زکاتت کیسه‌ات را پاسبان و آن صلاتت هم ز گرگانت شبان. So it means in zakat, the overflow and increase of one's gold is involved, and in salat, it's protection from fahsha and munkar.
Lewdness and the forbidden things.
Yeah, so this is referring to the ayah of the Quran, which says, "Inna salata tanha anil fahshai wal munkar." On zakatat kisat ra paswan. So that zakat is protecting your bag or your purse. But on salatat ham zigorganat shaban. It means your salat, that salat that you do, is a shepherd that is protecting you from the wolves. مال در ایثار اگر گردد تلف، در درون صد زندگی آید خلف. So it means if wealth is sacrificed if wealth is spent in the way of sacrifice, isar means sacrifice, or in the way of charity, dar darun, so it means in the heart, sad zindagi ayad khalaf, 100 lives will follow from it, or will come as a result of it. خود که یابد این چنین بازار را که به یک گل میخری گلزار را. It means where are you going to find such a bazaar like this, such a trade like this, where you give a single flower and in return you buy from it a whole rose garden.
Subhanallah. Beautiful.
Yeah. Marketplace, bazaar will be marketplace.
Yes,
where would you find a market like this where with in return for one flower you get the entire garden?
Right. Subhanallah.
Beautiful, yes.
Yeah. Mal dar isar. Oh, I read this already, sorry. Dane ra sad darakhistan است. Sorry. دانه را صد
Darakhtas on evaz.
درختستان عوض، حبه را میدهد صد کان عوض. So
Read it again, please. Dana ira sad darakhtas on evaz.
no. So this is actually all one word. So this is an issue with the text. So it's درختستان. So it means دانه را صد درختستان عوض. Means so for giving a seed in return, you get
the entire forest.
Yes. درختستان means
oh my heavens.
yes.
Okay.
So,
All right.
so in Urdu, I know you have the word ostan, right?
Yeah, yes.
The land of, so land of trees, right?
I
So
thought he was saying on evaz in return for that. I thought that's what he was saying.
Yeah. حبه را میدهد صد کان عوض. So you give a seed, or a habbe, it means a grain, and in return you get hundreds of mines in return.
Yeah, there he used the word khan just to have a good radif with an, but mine does not come out of a seed. But be that as it may, he's talking.
Yeah. So now this couplet is really interesting. It says, "Kana lillah." No, sorry. Kana lillah da. Sorry. Kana lillah دادن آن حبه است تا که کان الله له آید به دست. So this is referring to a hadith which says, whoever is for Allah, Allah is for him. Allah becomes for him. So whoever dedicates themselves to Allah, Allah will also, you could say, dedicate himself for that person. So that's what kana lillah means, being for Allah. So being for Allah is the giving of that grain. So when that because what we give is nothing compared to what Allah is and what Allah gives in return for us, right? Well, all we give is the grain. No, even if we give our whole wealth away, it's still just a grain compared to what we get in return from Allah. So that is the being for Allah. So kana lillah دادن آن حبه است تا که کان الله له آید به دست. So it says, in order for کان الله له to be gained, in order to reach that level, you have to first give the grain. So كان الله له means Allah becoming Allah becoming from him, right? So over here it says kana lillah is the giving of that small grain in order that kana Allah lahu may come into your hand.
Okay, let's make it even simpler. Kana lillah means we are for Allah. Let's say being for Allah.
Yes.
And kana Allah lahu, and Allah becomes his.
Yes.
You become for Allah, and Allah become yours. That's simplified.
Thank you.
Kana lillah, we are for Allah, and kana Allah lahu, and Allah becomes for him.
Yes.
There you go.
Allah زود بفروش و بخر قطره‌ای ده بحر قطره‌ای ده بحر پرگوهر ببر. الله هیچ تأخیری مکن که ز بحر لطف آمد این سخن. So Allah means for the sake of Allah, or in the name of Allah. When you say it twice, you're putting more emphasis on it. Zud befrush o bechar, hurry up, sell it and buy, buy what you're getting in return, right? The give the flower and get the rose garden in return. Don't wait. don't delay.
Yeah, make the trade.
Yeah, make the trade. Exactly. It's kind of like the stock market. Hurry up, buy.
Hit the submit button.
Yeah, exactly. Qatrade means give the droplet of water. Bahr porgohar bebar. It means, and in return, get the ocean full of pearls.
Beautiful.
Subhanallah. Allahu Akbar.
Oh, yeah. Allah hij ta'khiri makun means for the sake of God, don't delay even for an instance.
In the sake of saying for Allah, say hallelujah, basically. Allah, that's what he's saying. Allah means, oh, look at this, subhanallah.
Yes.
Yeah. Each takhiri makun.
Yeah. Yeah. Hij ta'khiri makun means don't delay.
Yes. Don't delay for a moment.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Not a moment.
Yeah.
Bahr lutf amad in sukhan. It means that what I'm saying right now, this saying, it has come from the sea of grace.
Grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, yes.
From the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As for Tovat, as for Tovat, bakhshish bi illat ast. So I was reading in the Mathnawi, it actually here, instead of as, it says ke for Tovat bakhshish bi illat ast, which makes more sense to me, which it means ke for Tovat bakhshish bi illat ast, پاکبازی خارج هر ملت است. نان دهی از بحر حق نانت دهند. جان دهی از بحر حق جانت دهند. So as for Tovat, so Tovat means generosity, right? So generosity is when you give bi-illat, you give for nothing not expecting anything in return, right?
Yeah.
That's true generosity.
Yeah.
پاکبازی خارج هر ملت است. So پاکبازی, one meaning of it is gambling, but the poetic meaning of it is when you lose everything, you give up everything in the way of love. پاکبازی خارج هر ملت است. So this is saying, this gambling where you gamble everything, right? You lose everything in the way of love for God. This transcends every religion. Kharij means transcends, goes above, goes outside. Har millat ast means of every people, every religion.
Now, if you say gambling, then I think Kharij is means it's not contained in any community. It's not part of any community at all. I think this is what was puzzling me also. Why would he call it Pakbazi Khariji Haram? Pakbazi is in our Urdu means being pure. So if being Pak, then it couldn't be Kharij Haram Millat. So it's gambling is out, which means if you are really kind of are doing a trade and hoping that you will get, because you spend something, you'll get something in return, that is probably discouraged here, that you shouldn't be gambling. You should not expect anything in return, just do it. So I don't know.
Yeah, no, I
As for Tovat bi illatas pakbazi kharaji har millatas. Okay.
Yeah, I also I was a little confused also about this, but yeah, transcends every religion. I think could
transcends is then it shouldn't be kharaj. Balaye, then it would be good. Pakbazi balaye har millatas, that's above it. It's okay,
So actually another meaning that the word kharij has in Farsi, and again, this is just me speculating, is like the highest level that you reach. Yeah. So for example, in the seminary where like they study to become religious scholars, Dars kharij is the highest level that they
That
use.
makes perfect sense.
Maybe that's
what
what
he's
it
using
means.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, pak bazi means, as
Yeah.
you said, right? Being pak,
Being
giving it away,
pious. Yeah. Yeah.
being pious, giving it away for
That is the
love.
highest point in a
That is the
fantastic.
highest point in every, millat.
Wow.
Maybe that makes more sense now that I think about it.
Okay. Like ouch, like the highest point.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
Nandehi as bahra haq, nandehi as bahra haq, nanat dahan. Means if you give away bread for the sake of God, you will get bread in return. Jandehi as bahra haq, janat dahan. So if you give your spirit and soul away, your life in the way of God, you will get life, in return. So I think this refers to the different kinds of zakat that we were talking about above, right? Zakat, the word zakat, and the ma'ni, or the meaning, the true inner meaning of zakat. Gar berizad barghay in chenar, barg bi bargish bakhshad kirdegar. So it means if the leaves from this tree fall, so this is like talking about the tree of your wealth, right? Barg bi bargish bakhshad kirdegar means God in return will give leaves, right? Will fill that leafless tree with leaves.
Okay.
گر نماند از جود در دست تو مال، کی کند لطف الهت پایمال. So it means if out of your generosity there remains no money in your hands, so if you end up giving away all of your wealth, out of your generosity, when will the bounty of God, leave you poor and destitute, right? So it's saying don't worry about, about becoming poor from giving charity and zakat. God's never going to leave you poor and destitute. Lubb-e bando kف پرزر برگشای، بخل تن بگذار و پیش آور سخای. ترک شهوت ها و لذت ها سخاست، هر که در شهوت فرو شد بر نخواست. So لب ببند و کف پرزر برگشای. It means shut the lips, right? و کف پرزر برگشای. It means open up your hand or your palm that's filled with gold. بخل تن بگذار و پیش آور سخای. It means give up the miserliness of the body, give up being a miser or stingy. و پیش آور سخای, and be generous,
Bring out your generosity. We in Urdu, when we say zar, we don't just mean gold, which I know in Persian it's gold, but zar is your wealth, basically. Includes the stocks and the cash in the banks and all that.
Right.
That's zar.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that makes better sense to us, not just gold.
Yeah. So now this last line is interesting. It's talking about, the one of the inner meanings of zakat, right? It says tark shahvat ha, means giving up lust, va lizzat ha, and so giving up lust and pleasures is generosity. Har ke dar shahvat furu shod bar nakhast. Whoever sinks in lust never rises up again out of it.
So whosoever becomes greedy he never gets satisfied. He gets lost into it
Yes.
and continues to accumulate and accumulate.
So
That's
true.
beautiful. Yeah.
So true. Alhamdulillah. So yeah, that sums up this spring or the rivulet on zakat. Next
I think
slide.
this is where we should really get the input from our participants also. But let me start by giving you a personal story, a little bit, not story. This is a little something. I know of a person who passed away in Manhattan, and he had several buildings and a lot of money, and he used to go and collect rents on the first of the month from all his tenants here and there. And when he passed on, the neighbors said that 3-4 days there is smell coming from this apartment. And they found out that he was gone for 3-4 days. And his son lived in Connecticut. They contacted him and they said, go ahead and bury him somewhere. I have never seen him. He has never paid attention to me for years. And I don't know what he wanted, what he didn't want. So he was buried at in that island that we have in New York, where the unclaimed bodies go, evidently. And he had cash and money that was everywhere in the bank. I'm talking about millionaire from 40 years ago. So once you get lost in accumulating wealth, somehow or the other, it takes you away from your responsibilities, not only from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but from your family and friends and your relatives also. So you're supposed to take care of your family and your near relatives. And then, of course, zakah you must give anyway for the people in general. Beautiful message. Ahmed, do you have to add anything? He's probably not on.
Well, no, I'm here. Thank you so much. I think, Brother Mahdi, mashallah, this is fantastic. And as you were speaking, I was thinking of a few Quranic passages, and it's striking how much trade language you find in the ayat of the Quran. So a couple of ones I put also in the chat. There's a passage in Surah At-Tawbah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Inna Allah hashtara min al-mu'minina anfusahum wa amwalahum bi anna lahumul jannah." That indeed God has purchased from the believers their souls and their wealth because the Jannah, the paradise, is for them. So this idea, like you said, there's such a wonderful. And the ayah, at the end of the ayah, it says, the ayah continues, and it says, "Fastabshiru bibaykum alladhi bay'atum bih, wa dhalika huwa al-fawz al-'azim." That so rejoice in this trade that you've made, because that is the supreme victory. So the idea that there is a quote unquote trade, and God Himself uses this term in the in His scripture, but the idea that there is a transaction or a barter, and of course what we receive is infinitely more than what we give because of the generosity of God.
See, one of the one of the reasons we should have these sessions is so that others can come in and give their ideas and opinions about what we just went over. Although not much new was discovered here, but there's a whole lot that one has to internalize. So let's see if anybody else wants to please go in, Brother Manzoor or anybody else that wants to just add on from their personal experiences or from what they understood or had no clarity, then we can talk about it.
Assalamu alaikum, this is Tahir. Uh, Reflection, two things come to mind. One is that, zakat is in everything. It's just not the money. So I was thinking of a zakat of knowledge and time. And time, I was, during Ramadan time, we always talk about the itikaf. So I was reflecting one itikaf that if you look at 2.5% of your 365 days, is almost come to around 10 days.
Wow.
So it's almost 10 days of the year. So that's I was just thinking that, it's everything means then what about time? So can you dedicate this time out of the 365 days? There are a number of days. So 10 days of that comes to close to 2.5%. So I think it's important to reflect on that. Yes, alhamdulillah, we are very careful in terms of calculating zakah in purely in terms of monetary terms and assets. But Allah has given us of these gifts in many different ways. There may be people, they may not have financial assets, but they've been given other gifts. So it doesn't mean that they can't give the zakat. So that could be part of your extreme love for humanity. Could be things which have been given, which are very unique, been given to you. So that becomes a responsibility also. So I think when we think of zakat, we should not be only thinking, we are conditioned to think monetarily, but I think this is one. Second is that my personal experience in after the earthquake in Pakistan, I went to Balakot. This whole city has become upside down, about 250,000 people. And I witnessed myself that there was not a single building which was standing in this very large town.
Mm.
Only one building, which was a marketplace, which was standing. They took me to that place, middle of that city, which was standing. It was very surprising that how in this city, this one building, which had about 7 stores on the ground floor, and there were few apartments on the top. He said the person who built this building, he said, he made a commitment that all rental income come for this building will be for the sake of Allah only. And that's what he did.
Ah,
This is one building standing of the entire Balakot town. It was just you stand there and you cry because there's nothing. It's all rubble, ups and down, everything. But
yes.
you feel some people, and this is one building. They gave the story of, what was it? I said, what's the background of this? And they talked about the person who owned this building. So this is but alhamdulillah.
I visited Balakot also after the earthquake and stuff, and I think I saw that building too. But the thing that really is still clear in my mind, when the side of the mountains were raised down, and you could see like that sand all the way from top to the bottom, like you cut a slice into half and stuff, and you see it just a little bit of maybe a foot or two of the dirt part. The rest of it was like coming down like like it's nothing. Devastation was total, like you mentioned, Balakot. So all of this is so temporary, whatever we have. And we should be thankful for everything we receive. And you're right about that. I've never connected those 10 days of Itikaf to be the 2.5% of our year, but interesting point.
Yeah, very interesting.
It is. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. This is Sajid. Very interesting point.
Assalamu alaikum.
I just want to make on the lighter side. It's not about zakat, but I'm sure most of you have heard the story. But it's about giving and charity.
Mm-hmm.
And the story is of Mulla Nasruddin. And Mulla Nasruddin was sleeping, and one day he saw in his dream Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he gave him a million dirham. And then he said, distribute this. So he said, how should I distribute this? The way I think so, or the way you do so? He said, no, just distribute it. So he gives 100,000, he gives 900,000 dirham to one person, and he gives 100,000, he distributes between 100 people. So the next day he sleeps again, and again he sees in his dream Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, what did you do? Why did you give so much money to one person and so little to the others? So he says, why are you blaming me? You do the exact same thing. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does the exact same thing. So the moral of the story is the person who got the 900,000, it is now his job. That is not his money to keep. It is his job to now distribute that wealth further downstream. And this is the, in a kind of lighter mode, Mulla Nasruddin teaches us the moral story of giving. And this is Allah doesn't have the time to distribute all this wealth to everybody, but he has given you the kind of amana to keep this money. And now once you just because you got the 900,000 doesn't mean you keep it all. That is the assets of all, your family, your people, the yatim, the miskeen. Everybody has a right. So it's not only that just because you got the money doesn't mean it's your money. You are just the trustee of this money, and now you have to give it down for the stream.
Not even trustee, custodian.
Custodian, that is right.
Yeah.
Right.
A
Custodian.
trustee can pass on to its own heirs, but a
Right.
custodian has it, hold
Custodian.
it for other people. Yeah,
Correct,
so
correct.
interesting.
But-
You know, this is an amazing, impactful story, Brother Sajid, that you just told us. MashaAllah.
Yeah. It really opened my eyes because I
Yes.
was
Yeah, it's a sunnat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Also, he gives a little more so that he can test them to see what they do with it.
correct.
There's a hadith that this reminds me of. It says, I think it goes like this: وَلِحَلَالِهَا حِسَابٌ وَلِحَرَامِهَا إِقَابٌ. Means for the halal wealth that has been given to you, there is hisab, there is
Accountability.
accountability, and for the haram wealth, for that there's punishment. So so even though then, as you said, Brother Sajid, the 900K is it's halal, but you're accountable for it. It's not. You're gonna have to account for what you did for all of it.
Absolutely. And Shruti, Sister Shruti put in a comment in the chat that perhaps she wants to read it out, or we can read it out on her behalf.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
You can read it for me. Thank you.
So Sister Shruti said, zakat can be a smile to someone who feels there is no one in his or her life, visiting the sick without any ulterior motive, or just asking someone how they are doing without anything in return.
Subhanallah. Subhanallah. Beautiful. Visiting the sick part really is touching your heart, because there are people in the in the homes and in hospitals and stuff that don't get any visitors. Not to this day and age, of course, I mean, not with COVID, but even before that. So that is, if you have time, that is a very good thing to do. Rotarians do this as often as they can. I know that our Rotary Club does that close to holidays, especially, because that's when they miss most. Yeah. Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is very true. On a personal note, I just want to add, many years ago when I first moved in this neighborhood, there was a very senior older lady here. And, we were building the MCGP masjid and, thought we were doing a fantastic job. And then one day she met us and she basically, belittled me. She said, you think you're doing a great job, but, the true compass of a people is on how you treat your sick and your elderly. And she said, I have been living in this neighborhood and nobody has come to visit me. And nobody even bothers to call. She lived by herself with her son, who was not with a disabled son. And I mean, that's when I realized. I said, oh my God, we feel like we are doing all this wonderful tasks, but when we don't call on the sick, or when we don't call on the disabled or the elderly, then we have failed.
Yes, that reminds me. Yeah.
Thank you, Sister Shruti. Yes.
That reminds me of my personal experience. Also, one more. I was practicing in Brooklyn, lived in Staten Island, which is next adjacent town, and I decided almost to retire, but I was doing part-time with the visiting nurses, making some house calls for the people that were shut-ins and stuff. So I basically did not want to even continue that. And one of the nurse called me up and she said, there's this lady that needs to get her prescription refilled after 6 months. The pharmacy wants a new prescription. So could you please do me a favor and see this lady? And this lady was exactly like the one that you mentioned. She had in her house, she lived in the apartment, it was a house. I think it may have been a condo, but I don't know. It was connected homes. And she had a disabled son who was in his 20s, but obviously disabled. He couldn't manage anything himself. He could walk around, but he just did not have the faculties to really arrange things. And she was taking care of him, so to speak. but she was in the bed in miserable condition, not been visited by anybody, and not really getting the kind of nutrition she needed. The bed sheets were not changed. When I saw it, I basically could not help myself. Here I am, I still am physically able of taking care of such people, and yet I was going to retire and not provide the service to these people. So I immediately called a social worker, initiated the homes visits for the visiting nurses for her and the home care lady to come and clean, and I got her a new hospital bed, which was, she was entitled to all of these facilities, these things, but she was not getting it because nobody really had the time to see her condition. And she did have a daughter that lived in Florida, but she couldn't visit much. And when her social security check used to come, at that time, I don't know why she didn't have a direct deposit thing, but this was, let's say, 10 years ago or so. This lady that used to take the check and deposit, she also used to take advantage of her. It became apparent afterwards. So I followed her for a few months until everything was in place. But there's a whole lot of that need that goes unfulfilled, Brother Sajid. And I think we have to keep our eyes open to at least the neighborhoods and the areas that we actually are traversing every day. And if
Yes.
there's anybody that is in our path, at least that touches our lives, we should take care of them.
Well, no, absolutely. And, you know, this is the scholars and the commentators say this is one of the wisdom of zakah, is that because you are now obligated to find those who are destitute and establish a relationship with them. And of course, the best zakah is given, you know, hand to hand, right? That you actually engage with the recipients. And then it creates, like you said, at Sister Shruti, that relationship, so that then, in addition to if there's a financial contribution, there's also that social bond, which people need so desperately.
That smile.
That smile, exactly.
That's right.
That smile.
I would like to make a point. I think it's also important that we reach out to our relatives. You know, I know a lot of people who don't care about relatives, who are, you know, in needy, even if they are not needy. I think there's a lot of emphasis in the Quran to reach out to your, you know, close relatives, Aqrabin.
Aqrabin, yeah.
Aqrabin. And I have been trying very hard to do that. I called up one of my cousins after 4 years. My cousin is in California, and I just never happened to, you know, contact her all these years. And so the other day, I just thought about it. Somebody sent me a WhatsApp that there are 10 different kind of sadaqah that you can give. And I'm sure that applies to zakat also. Smiling at the face of your, you know, brother is a sadaqah too.
Mm-hmm.
And feeding your wife, which I do sometimes, out of necessity. That is sadaqah. So I called her up, and she was really surprised, my cousin. After 4 years, she was so excited. Then we talked more than an hour. We talked on the telephone, and we caught up. And it was so rewarding, honestly. I mean, it's really so heartwarming. I cannot believe it, that I reached out to her and she reciprocated. And I just wanted to bring this up, that this kind of zakat is also very important.
Brother Manzoor, the point that has to be made with Aqraba is also that many a time there are some family disputes and some obstacles and some reasons not to talk. That is a real challenge. You may have your relative that may have annoyed you somewhere, or somebody told you that they did this XYZ. These are the real challenges. So now, forgetting all of that, forgetting that they did not attend your wedding, forgetting that they were really angry at you and they did XYZ to you, and then reaching out to them. That is the real challenge with Aqraba. Other people, you know, there is not much challenge. You can go ahead and they don't expect much from you. But your relatives will say, oh yeah, you call me now? How dare you do that? That XYZ. And you go over that and still continue and then make your point eventually. And with your smile and with your good manners, win them over back. That is the challenge that they pose. The general community does not give that much of a challenge.
That's very true. Very true.
All right. I think we did pretty good. 1 hour.